Welcome to Design Muse Podcast, a podcast meant to inspire, educate, and advocate on all things commercial interior design. I am your co-host, Bridget Santos.
And I'm Melanie Hanna.
We are Design Muse Podcast. Welcome back to Design Muse Podcast. We are so excited to have an internal conversation today between myself, Bridget, and Melanie. We are talking all about the creative cost of constant connectivity. We talk about the Teams pinging, the calendar alert. Hey, can you jump on a quick call? The constant connectivity that is required by our industry. And I'm going to open it up by asking Mel a question. When was the last time you had 2 uninterrupted hours to design?
This is a hard question because I don't usually get that time until maybe after my kids go to sleep, which is crazy to think about. To give you a good example, my reoccurring Wednesday schedule is exhausting. Drop off the kids by 7, make sure everybody has their water and their snack, drive. It could be an hour, hour and a half. And a lot of times I'm taking my reoccurring Wednesday call on it, which is 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. I have another reoccurring that's leadership meeting, 9 to 10. I have a client presentation meeting every single week for a very high-end property from 10 to 11, sometimes 11:30. By then, I'm starving, likely, and need a little bit of quiet time. So I'm usually trying to fit in 1 hour on my lunch break, if I get it, if I'm lucky, to be able to do heads down work. But usually it's email catch up at that point. This Wednesday, I had also a 1 to 2, an overlapping 1:30 to 2:30. I had a 3 to 4, and then I finally had some downtime. And then I'm hitting the road for softball after work. It's exhausting. Most of my days look like back-to-back meetings, so I have to find that time truly at the end of the day after the kids go to sleep.
That's how I feel. It's kind of like, when are we supposed to have those uninterrupted hours to design? I mean, wake up, take the kids to school, get to the office, had to be in Fort Worth on Wednesday, had to be at another job site in Allen, back to Prosper, down to I mean, it's a constant ping pong of, hey, can you jump on a call? Hey, I've got to go here. Can you come look at this on the job site? It's just, we're constantly communicating as designers. And the hard question is, when do we create? And when do we have that downtime to inspire us and keep going on the design side of things when we're constantly communicating and just keeping up with our quote unquote meetings schedule and everything else that has to fall within a day?
What is interesting is I have been in the industry 19 years, and I would say the first 10 years of my career, we didn't have clients texting. We didn't have all these submittal portals of Procore and all that. I mean, I'm going to date myself, but we were getting fax submittals back then. That's a whole nother level of stressful. So I'm very grateful for technology, but I think sometimes there ends up being a monotony that happens in your role. And especially as you grow in your career and you get into leadership roles, everybody has these back-to-back meetings, but it's about carving out that time to create. Because as creatives, we are meant to have that heads down time and not bounce from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing. We really have to protect that time. And so let's talk a little bit about the creative cost that's happening, the fragmented thinking, the no deep work. How can we pivot that and advocate for that and be able to create better projects and mentor better too?
I think that's a loaded question, right? As we're basically trying to solve a problem to have creative time while we still have to keep up with everything else going on? And so I would say that's probably $1 million question there. What do you do when you're constantly, on calls, doing everything we've talked about? And then on top of that, just the decisions that you have to make all day, the decision fatigue of, approvals and everything else that just drains the time that we can get for our creative energy. It's a tough balance. Things have come a long way. There's an app for everything, there's a text for everything, there's a Teams for everything. I feel some days if I looked at my screen time on my phone, it would probably be ridiculous. And it's not because I'm sitting there scrolling and being creative. I'm just physically trying to keep up between Teams, email, text messages, phone calls. And it just, it's that cost of having to keep up with the day to day. But when do we get the chance to be creative?
How many decisions do you think an interior designer makes a day on average?
I try to explain this to my husband because by the time I get home, I just don't want to decide what to have for dinner because all day long, we're probably making, hundreds of,
Thousands.
yeah,
I
okay,
I was thinking
thousands.
thousands.
Right.
And you have to be
From
Johnny on the spot because you have to, yes, no, maybe, let's go. Here's a product for that. No, that's not acceptable. That's not commercial grade. Where did that come from?
Right, and it's like finding the product is just the start of the decision. Now, how is that product seamed together? How is that product gonna transition to this other product? Now, what type of transition strip are we gonna use there? And then what color is that transition strip? And then what color of baseboard would you put with that product? Because maybe it's a wood veneer and you want a darker base versus, the white base that you have throughout the project. It's every little fine-tooth detail that we have to decide. We decide the color, and then how does that transition? It's a snowball effect, as I always say it, because when people come back to us and say, "Hey, let's change that one thing right there." Well, that one wall covering based our 20 decisions after and what we did with the space after that. So the decision making is that constant design work, which is great. You have to think in that level of detail to be a productive interior designer, right? We have to think about every single little thing that's on a wall. And if you're listening to us right now, look at the wall in front of you and really break down what decisions have to be made to make up that wall. And think about how you document every single one of those things, from the cased opening size to the trim on the cased opening to, hey, I want a header, but I want a scroll piece, just every little detail that it takes to make that decision.
The recessed TV box, the Chief box, it needs a 6-inch stud now because it won't fit in 3 5/8. All the things. So, yes, we make a lot of decisions. I think another creative cost that we end up seeing is it's burnout disguised as passion. As interior designers, we are very passionate about what we do. And what happens is the late nights, they really aren't just hustle. They are literally an overflow from meetings. So I am getting that proposal done that I was supposed to write on Wednesday at 10 p.m. at night versus 10 a.m. when it was on my calendar and it was blocked out because other meetings got pushed to the side and I'm having to write the proposal or I'm having to review the documents to keep the team going in that 12th hour, unfortunately. So your calendar's full and your creativity is quite literally fighting for oxygen at that point because you've had too many decisions you've had to make. You've had fragmented thinking. And so why do you think that that is? Let's go back to Zoom culture and when all this began.
When it comes to the I would say COVID era, right? And everybody kind of realized how much you can do virtually. Stacking that back onto, okay, we're out of that COVID era. So we have not only our in person needs and those virtual needs, but those virtual needs never really went away, right? So we have double, I would say, don't you think?
Yeah, I will say that because I think a lot of clients say, okay, well, let's meet Teams or Zoom. But before then, I was meeting with clients primarily. And again, I have 19 years of experience. Up until 6 years ago, I had mainly given my interior presentations in person. And so when that happened and I had to pivot on my presentation style, my format, and learning how to engage online versus in person. And now everything is so automatic. So if you're virtual, you have a next meeting and there's no time to think between the task or prepare. And going back to my Wednesday where I read off everything and I have that client presentation for a luxury property every Wednesday, I have to give deliverables for that, or my team
Mhm.
has to give deliverables for that. So what that means is because my morning is stacked before that with reoccurring meetings, I have to have all those deliverables done by the end of Tuesday to be able to present on Wednesday at 11, which is crazy. I don't have any time to edit. I don't have any time to prep. It's just diving in, right? And so the camera fatigue is definitely a thing. You need that connection, right? But then also there's something about like if you don't have your camera on, then you may not be paying attention. Somebody may
Right.
not be paying attention. You may be doing other things. Another thing that I've seen a lot is because the team's culture, there's a lot of over collaboration happening, which causes a lot of time on projects, in my opinion. So back in the day, we would set deliverable dates, work plan it out, and we would have, okay, we're going to have DD meeting number one, Mr. Owner. And so there was no weekly checkpoints for most projects. I mean, there could be, depending on the project type, but there was less intervals of touching base quickly. Now we're having to prepare every single week for something potentially, depending on the project and the schedule. Internally, instead of just coming together in person and doing a quick hand sketch and word vomiting words for maybe a design narrative, it's like almost over collaboration that I'm seeing that happens a lot these days.
Right. And when you say over collaboration, do you think that because we have the tools at our fingertips, we're able to model everything you can imagine when it comes to BIM? And you talk about over collaboration. Do you think that's stemming from overthinking some things? Or do you think that the level of collaboration that things have gone to is helping, hurting, good for some situations, not as good for other situations? What do you see from an over collaboration standpoint?
This is a good question, and it's a really controversial thing. I'm going to talk internally versus externally to a client right now. Internally, we will have, for instance, those a reoccurring actually on that Wednesday that I read off, I have a project meeting. It's for a hospitality project. It's a reoccurring interior meeting every single week to discuss deliverables, to go over the project, which is great to have that touch base. And luckily, we have that in person. So it is awesome because we can get a lot done in a little bit on a time. But what happens is sometimes we don't have things coming up and we really don't need to meet. And as a project manager, it's my role to say, okay, team, we don't really need this meeting today because we don't really have anything coming up. Let's make it an email. Give me an update. But a lot of folks don't stop and say, okay, that reoccurring meeting, it's just we're meeting to meet. We don't really have anything. It's really on the project manager side, whoever's running the project to determine, are we meeting to meet? Are we actually accomplishing things? Do we have an agenda? Are we discussing problem solving during this and updates? Could this be an email? Is what everyone should be asking. Could this be an email? Which is another problem. You could end up having many emails, right? We have to start thinking about how we can pivot because I'm seeing across not just interior design, but other sectors, people are burnt out. I mean, they are just meeting fatigued. They are over the monotony of doing certain tasks because it's too much. There's too much going on and it's too fast. We definitely have to have a new level of accountability, in my opinion.
And I want to piggyback off of that a little bit because I am an owner, right? And the last thing that I want to see for my employees is to have this level of fatigue. No company is perfect. There's hard weeks, there's not hard weeks, but I, as an owner, want to support my team so we don't go into this fatigue, right? What I think it stems back to, Melanie, and this is maybe a little off topic here, but the amount of work that is expected to do for one person because of the price points we have to meet, let's say, in our design contracts, or we're beat down to, do it at X fees. Well, now that person has to take on so much more work to cover their spot there at the firm. We've talked about this a little bit before on the podcast, but it's hard to keep up with the industry and, oh, well, this person will cut their fees by 50. Will you guys do that? And as an owner, of course, you want to get the project, but you also have to think about your employees and, wow, they're going to still be doing the same amount of work. And I'm going to have to get another project because now we've cut our fees in half. And that can lead to a lot of the fatigue that we're talking about. And by no means is this meant to sound like we're complaining about work, right? I'm not complaining that we've got an abundance of work and that's incredible. It's more, how do you make sure that there's a correct time management, there's the correct amount of things that need to be done, but that also that income that's coming in is appropriate so that you're not overloading one person with 10 projects at 50% rate. You could have 5 projects at your 100% design fee. Does that make sense?
Yes, and this is a very, very hot topic because a lot of folks in the industry are being very competitive and in their price points, but it's almost hidden from what I hear. I'll give you an example. So in the workplace side of things here in the DFW region, some of the price points that designers are putting out there to get jobs is almost embarrassing for our industry. They're really undercutting our value as interior designers and what we bring to the table and understanding life safety and code and all these things and all the parts and pieces of understanding door hardware. And it's not just about the finishes, it's about the flow of the office or about how you connect in the different spaces, right? But they're making it so transactional and so cookie cutter, I guess, that it's undercutting a lot of other design firms and undercutting us as an industry, in my opinion. So then it does create burnout because then firms are becoming more of sweatshops because it's all about like the technical side of it and all the back-to-back meetings and the all the things, right? And I think some of it is just there's a pivot in our industry right now where I think we're all trying to still recover from the COVID era because a lot of people are having to go back to work full time. They're not hybrid anymore. And they still have that connectivity of when we were hybrid. I'll give you an example on that too. I have a few projects that I will actually get, whether it's from a contractor or a client, and I don't mind. I love the fact that clients feel comfortable to give me a text and like ask a quick question.
Me
But
too.
what it does create is when I get a text, I get a call. I couldn't answer the call because I was on another Zoom call or a Teams call, but they call again and then they email me all and it's all about there's 4 communications there. So now I have to decide and I used to text and be like, "Hey, I'll call you," whatever. But then and now I've just started and I'll just email back because you have to kind of redirect and retrain and also set boundaries. We can't communicate in all the channels. So let's decide and let's lead into boundaries here and say, okay, here we are. There's all these channels of communication for this project. Text is best. Text me because that's the quickest way you're going to get me. Or email me. Or no, we're going to only work on Procore and the OAC meeting. This is our channels of communication. Every project that's a little bit different because there's some projects I really need clients just to text me because that's the way they communicate best and fastest to get answers, right? But then some, they only want to email or they want to think about things as a designer leading to and cast that vision of here's our communication channel. Most designers or architecture in a whole is not always great about their yes men. Like, yes, I'll do that. Yes, they don't set boundaries. We're just not good at it as creatives. I'm putting myself in that category, but it leads to burnout because you're always on. Always.
Always. And that kind of
Always.
leads us to a little bit of a prompt. How many hours did you actually design last week? How many
Well,
hours did you actually get that creative outlook versus the busy day-to-day things we're talking about?
I can actually barely answer those. So today is Friday. So I had a big presentation on Wednesday that was not about a submittal or not about like a quick email or collaboration, just heads down. I needed to sketch out a floor plate for a project and two of them, floor plans, space plans, and adjacencies. I I spent 4 hours in this entire week. I'm not gonna say how many hours I've worked up until Friday. It's embarrassing a little bit. It goes back to that, like, burning the midnight oil conversation that we were having earlier. I would say about 4 hours of, like, dedicated, and that wasn't enough because it's not just about designing, though, and being creative. In my role, I'm writing proposals, I'm reviewing contracts, I'm reviewing pay apps, I'm review things that really need attention to that I cannot read while I'm on a call. I would say 4 to 6 hours, but again, that is like midnight hours, not
Right.
during the day.
And let's talk about who should be accountable for this, right? Who needs to set the tone of what is too much to cause the fatigue and what is appropriate. And people say this a lot, but the leadership accountability and the top down, right? From the very top person to down, setting the tone. If the owner and higher ups are wanting this type of communication or encouraging this type of level of burnout and work, then it's starting from the top down. If leadership is saying, hey, it's important that you're on and you carve this time out for yourself and setting a certain tone, setting a certain boundary, like we've talked about with clients, and able to control in a sense, because a lot of what we do is controlling what's going on, right? And making sure that we are navigating the client to the right decision, let's say, or we're navigating the client to the right workflow, all those types of things. And it all comes from the top down of leadership. Who controls the calendar? Who models these boundaries? Are we rewarding the speed over depth? Those are all questions that leadership needs to ask themselves.
It is about leading by example because I will tell you with my team, when we start to work a lot of hours and I'm working those hours, they see me working those hours. I have actually started to schedule emails. I will not email them at 10 o'clock at night, usually, or unless I like forget to do the little scheduling thing. I really try my best to schedule things. I actually have one employee that laughs when she gets 8 a.m. emails from me and she'll say, yeah, so when were you working last night? Because she knows. But that's part of leading by example because she knows me really well, but others may not know that I was doing that at 10 o'clock at night. And then they're going to feel like they need to do that at 10 o'clock at night. I think also going back to the day to day, I personally, and I'm trying really hard to do this, is block out more heads down time and stick with it. I don't care if there's a national meeting that gets put on my calendar, that needs to be heads down focused time for me. And because I'm going to mention it and everyone's probably sick and tired of hearing this, but I am ADHD. I really need focused time first thing in the morning or late at night. I will get squirrel real quick. I have a hard time sticking to that sometimes, but I think you are in control of your own calendar. And yes, your leadership influences that. I think it goes back to modeling behavior and having a psychological, safe work environment to be able to set those boundaries, which is a whole nother discussion for another day. That's a whole nother hot topic, especially in our industry, because I have worked at firms where working 60, 70 hours a week was a badge of honor. And I do not want that for my employees. I do not
Right.
want that for myself. That is not a badge of
100%.
honor.
I think as we reflect on this topic today and we're talking about what are the practical shifts that we can make sure these things don't happen. A great question, what if firms tracked creative hours just like we track billable hours? And think about that and create some practical shifts that you can do.
To wrap us up today, we want to give 3 tangible tips. As creatives, we have got to do a better job about protecting our day and our time so that we can give ourselves back time to focus and get back to the real root of design and collaboration and not just the monotony of meeting after meeting after meeting. Number 1 is turn instant into intentional. As designers, things have gotten so fast. And throughout the day, we're Johnny on the spot. I will say sometimes it's better to not respond instantly because it gives you time to think and be intentional about with how you're going to respond. And then also, if you are setting out blocks of time within your day. So say your biggest focus time is first thing in the morning and you know that about yourself, then don't come into the office first thing in the morning and answer every email. Maybe set a 30-minute block at the end of each day that you are answering and catching up on all of your emails. So maybe that's 30 minutes before lunch and it's 30 minutes before the end of the day and you're heading out so that you're able to accomplish that task of answering those emails versus feeling like you have to have your email open all day, every day. Now, with what we do, there is a lot of instant collaboration that has to happen. It's about knowing what channels to be paying attention to. For instance, on Teams, that is such a great tool to be able to ask questions to your team members instantaneously, especially if they're not in the same office as you or the consultants are not in the same office as you. There's certain channels that the instantaneousness of it is very beneficial, but there's also times where you need to be just heads down. You're picking up red lines that are in what we would call like a blue beam session where we have our red lines for the project, say the project manager, which would be a role that I serve in. I'm marking up the set and they're heads down concentrating on it. I don't need the team members over there looking at their teams all day. They need to be heads down and focusing so that they can accomplish the task faster. It's all about communication too. So on Teams, what people forget sometimes is that they can actually put a kind of out of office and say, hey, focusing on deadline, ping me if you really need me, but I'm heads down on this task. That is okay to do. We don't have to constantly be answering everyone. Now, it's different with your different roles, right? In my role as director of interior design and project manager, I am there to answer questions. So that is a tough spot when you're in a leadership role and you have to be available 24/7 because your team needs you to answer in those questions. Take that advice from a standpoint of what it is for your particular role. Turn instant into intentional. Tip number 2, run a weekly calendar cut. What does that mean? 30 minutes every Friday. Look at your calendar for the next week. Delete and decline anything that does not directly move a project forward or communicate to the team overall. Now, there are certain instances, for instance, our team, or our Dallas team specifically, has a meeting once a week where we get together and we understand what the big tasks are for the week. Instead of me having individual meetings with each person, we are able to quickly go through, here's everything that's coming up, and here's what the big tasks are for the week. It also lets other team members see a glimpse of what everyone's working on, which is kind of cool. It helps us understand staffing needs so that we can grab somebody really quickly. Those are cultural meetings, which are awesome. If something comes up and we have a big deadline, I will be the first one to cancel it because we need that time back potentially. Look at your meetings overall. Do you have to attend every product presentation or every CEU? Maybe you could replace 2 or 3 of those meetings with a time where you're more focused. Could we also look at syncing up on shared documents instead of meeting to meet marketing? Maybe we have a shared document where we could go and see updates of who we've met with, what projects are coming, what proposals we sent out, versus having a meeting that everybody's on the call and they're half paying attention because they're trying to get something else done. So tip number 2, run a weekly calendar cut, meaning look and see what you can cut out. That gives you back the gift of time. Tip number 3, bundle the small stuff into one block. What does that mean? When you have these tedious tasks that are coming up, especially administrative creative tasks, like a timesheet or emails, or if you're a project manager and you deal with accounting, make sure you're bundling all of those so that you have the correct brain powers. I work best with numbers first thing in the morning. So when I have to do my accounting work, I will actually sit down first thing in the morning and I will look at everything at once. If I start it and stop it, it will literally take me 2 times the amount of time to do it. If you can, instead of scattering them out throughout the day, create a block on your calendar. And maybe it's every other day that you are having to do these tasks. So, say you have a bunch of things coming up that it's like end of the month task, and you need to be focused on a pay app or whatever it might be, contracts. Give yourself time when you think best, which it may be end of day, it may be at lunch. Think about that. Start to have a level of emotional intelligence and pay attention to when you work best on what task. What do I mean by that? So, for instance, my example of numbers first in the morning, that's great. I don't want to really do creative tasks first thing in the morning usually. I don't know why. I think maybe it's because I have all those small things that I know that I need to get out of the way. I tend to work on creative tasks better after lunch, in the evening, unfortunately, in the middle of the night. It's just whenever I don't have my mind going 5 million different ways, I'm able to work best. The biggest key here is learning to protect your time and be intentional. Those are just 3 tips of many approaches that you could take. But what I would challenge you guys today is to really think about how you work and how you can give yourself back the gift of time. Because ultimately, that's how you will be able to have more free space to be creative, be successful, have joy in what you're doing, and remove the monotony of always being on and always being connected. We hope that you learned a lot from today's episode and excited to have you guys. Until next time, toodaloos.